Investing in crypto, especially Bitcoin, I'm going to explain why it's a mistake and why this is an inevitable thing that's going to be here for a long time and it's here to stay. And that's why you should invest now before the costs go up and it's just harder to attain. So, I'm going to be going through a couple reasons why this is inevitable, starting off with the mathematical scarcity. So, unlike fiat money like, USD, Canadian dollars, etc., Bitcoin's capped at 21 million coins. You might have heard of this before. People talk about it has a particular amount of supply, and that is obviously huge. That's why, there's so much stuff going on in America with the inflation and stuff like that we've seen would never happen with Bitcoin. So super good part of Bitcoin is that it has a limited supply. The scarcity is enforced by math and code, not politics. You're not gonna have a president that can just make more Bitcoin or nothing like that. That's a huge benefit to Bitcoin, and all of this really comes down to how good crypto is and the decentralization and the global accessibility of crypto. It's just that Bitcoin is the best one out of all the cryptos. So another thing is the decentralization. So no single government, corporation, or individual owns Bitcoin. It's a network, and so that means as long as the internet exists, Bitcoin can function. So again, it's taking the power out of the hands of governments, world leaders. Again, like I said, you can't have a situation where this particular president or world leader wants to do this with money, and so they're messing up the money. They do stuff like that. Bitcoin, it can't be harmed by stuff like that. Now the question is, where is Bitcoin going to go in the future? The only question is, when it comes to that, is, how much integration will governments allow? Because, the integration level is going to determine how, a part of everyday life Bitcoin is, and crypto in general, for everyday people. It's still currently, something that a lot of people use, but, plenty of people don't know or really care much about crypto because it's not in their daily life. They don't get paid in crypto. They don't purchase in crypto. It's not even an option they see, when shopping on Amazon, on Walmart, etc. That's the question where, at what point does that happen, and the effects of that level of integration. But I'm just talking about in this video the power of it, how proficient it is, and that's obviously the reason it's grown to the value it is at now. $110,000 plus, and counting for one Bitcoin. So another reason is the trustless technology. So traditional finance requires trust in banks, governments, middlemen. The thing with Bitcoin is that it replaces trust with cryptography and consensus. So anyone can verify the ledger themselves. Transparency at a global scale is what it is. Like, you don't have all of these you see that a lot with banks and stuff. There's all these different people and mechanisms in the middle of when you want to do a wire transfer or these payments. There's so many people in the middle of a wire transfer. There's so many people in the middle of a direct deposit. It's not just you and your boss or the company you work for. It's the banks, government, etc. There's none of that with crypto. None of that with Bitcoin. The global accessibility, like I said, it can be anyone across the world. You don't need, all this, you just need a phone and internet connection. It doesn't discriminate based off, different banks. Again, it's taking the power out of the banks, because the banks, again, obviously hold most of the power when it comes to USD. When it comes to USD, Canadian dollars, etc., Japanese currency, etc., it's mostly the banks and the governments. Those are the middlemen. Those are, the proprietors. So that's the big thing with, Bitcoin and crypto, is that it takes the power out of all that. And the last reason I'm going to talk about is the geopolitical hedge. So in times of war, sanctions, economic collapse, Bitcoin can move across borders instantly. Obviously, again, you see to an extent governments kind of resist Bitcoin and other cryptos now to a certain extent. Trump's kind of done some favorable stuff with crypto, but for the most part, obviously, you have this thing that is new, and then it's also, super decentralized. Governments are going to be, not messing with it at first. It can absolutely become a reserve asset, for the world and countries at large, because of these, these things that I'm talking about, the decentralization and stuff like that. Like I said, I think this is an inevitable thing. It's just a matter of the speed in which, it starts to take over, and the speed at which it's integrated into everyday life, So there's a lot of dumb parts about crypto, the meme coins. You can make money off of it, but, those aren't obviously stable. But I'm making this video specifically about Bitcoin. It's constantly being adopted by more and more payment apps, businesses, etc. So, I think it's something people need to get invested in as soon as possible. This is, like I said, an inevitability, and we can see it is something as potent as Bitcoin. It's inevitable, So might as well get in sooner rather than later, and not look back in the future and be like, why not? Why didn't I invest and stuff like that? So yeah, this is something like on the level of like gold, in my opinion. The scarcity and the kind of power it has. So if you enjoyed this video, please let me know. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one.